Hello everybody. My name is Zachary Feller, a native Tennessean, and I'm 20 years old. I know this doesn't sound like a start of a book review, but anyway, be that as it may, this is going to be my book review for Brian Lee Durfee's The Forgetting Moon, which is the first book in a trilogy called The Five Warrior Angels. The reason I started with that is if you can handle the opinions of a 20-year-old from the Mid-South, then cool, I guess. Stick around for my thoughts. So let's talk about it. So this book, to me, I'm going to gush about it. It was an easy 5 stars. I uploaded the review on Goodreads a couple months ago. I think it was in late January, maybe early February. I wrote a lot of words. Brian put it on his Facebook. And, I kind of forgot about my review, my online review I said I was going to do. I've never done a YouTube review before. And I forgot about it because school got really intense for me. But now that I have time to do it, I am excited to talk about it. So, yeah. Book was easy, 5 out of 5 stars for me. You may ask, why was it 5 out of 5 stars? Well, I think the easiest way to answer that question is with everything it does right. It's almost like a checklist. Like if you had a checklist of everything you love about the fantasy genre. For me, Brian just checkmarked every single box, and I really loved it. You want elves, you want trolls, you want dwarves, book's got it. You want political plots, book has it. You want interesting characters who may or may not be morally gray. I think most of our side characters could be, but I think there's like some argument that maybe the main characters aren't, although I don't know. Maybe Brian will change this in book 2. I don't know. Nail, Jondrelin, and Tal are the main characters, and they're the main POVs of the book. They seem pretty like the good guys, if you ask me. I don't think they had any really morally gray decisions, although, like I said, it has been like 4 months since I've read the book, so who knows. Maybe things are getting a little hazy now for me, but, still loved it. I can't stop gushing about the prose. I think Brian did a lot of research on his prose for this novel. I mean, for me, okay, so when I decided to give the book a try, Goodreads kind of like popped it up on one of my pages. I was like, I don't even know what the hell that is. But I decided to pull it up. And I decided later to pull up Brian's, what is it called? His YouTube channel. Once I saw that he had reviews, and I watched his reviews. He had a fun personality, so I gave the books a shot, right? I said, okay, I've seen this book before, I've seen it on my Goodreads, so I'll give the book a chance. So I pull up the book, read the first little chapter prologue online, and when I tell you that the first opening couple lines, they were just sucked into my brain, and I could just picture what the author wanted to do, what Brian wanted to do. I was utterly amazed. I had never felt that in a book before. I don't know if y'all have ever felt that in a novel where you just feel like, wow, this book, you can just picture perfectly what's happening, and the prose just jumps out at you. You like the prose. You can't get enough of it. You want to just absorb it. That's how I felt with the book. I went through that prologue in no time flat. It took me I think I read those 17-ish pages in I want to say 4 or 5 minutes, and I never do that. So for me, it grabbed me, and I was like, I'm going to go buy these 2 books. So I bought it and The Blackest Heart, its sequel, which I'm reading this summer, and I'm very excited about. And I was just like, I read through the first book, and I adored it. I just knew off this first impression that I would adore this novel, and I did. And that's always a great sign. So for me, the prose is just so stand out. It's wonderful. To me, it felt like a Diet Martin, or a Martin Light, if you want to call it that way. And I feel like Brian definitely did his research and studied George R.R. Martin's prose in depth, because that's what it felt like to me. Except it didn't have all the food descriptions that Martin put in his books. There's a lot less of that, which I was very thankful for. I mean, obviously some people like to talk about food. Martin clearly likes his food, I guess. I don't know. But there was not a lot of that. The only real criticism I have of the prose was that he used the word not in a UGHT a little too much. I thought I was constantly in the before the chapter sacred text sort of sections. There's a lot of knots, and I was like, maybe dial it back on that. I think I also noticed an incorrect usage of thou or thee, but I was like, man, who cares? It's so minor. It was not really a bother, although I did notice it because I really like linguistics, so daggum. Another great thing about the book that I really liked was the character interactions, specifically in regards to the dialogue. It was wonderful. I was like, There's a part in the beginning of the book when he was like talking about Nail and his buddies like Zane, and I forget the other guy's name. I think his name was Stefan. I could be wrong. It's been a bit, like I said. But and they were making like, and I don't want to be crass, but they made like some, crass jokes or crass motions, like you can call it, in front of one another. And I was like, Brian Lee Durfee's definitely done his research, because this is definitely, it almost was like a high school locker room boys talk. And it was just very obvious to me that he had, I mean, obviously everyone's been there, but I think a lot of authors get uncomfortable writing stuff like that. But that's how guys joke, or at least a lot of younger guys, in my experience, joke. I try to refrain from it, but like, obviously that's how guys joke. So I thought it was kind of funny, and I was like, man, this is good dialogue. The dialogue never ceased to amaze me either. Like, I just kept going. The dialogue was brilliant. Specifically, like, anytime Jondrelin said anything, I was like, it's like, man, Jondrelin's character is fascinating. Her story is like, she wants to become she's a princess who's like the most fair in all the kingdom, but she wants to become a gladiator because she believes that's her destiny. So her story was fascinating. You're like rooting for her, and it's just wonderful. Anything else I want to talk about? The pacing. Oh yeah, the pacing of the book is fantastic. The chapters are just long enough to not bore you, but they're also quick enough that you can go through them really fast. I ended up going through like 3 or 4 chapters like per session, and it just felt like the book was just like gone. In no time flat, I would just like throw it out the window. I mean, the chapter was done. Bye. And I love that about the book. It shows that the author really cared about the pacing of the novel, even though it was like 800 page book, or nearly. Or I think it's only a little over 700 trade paperback. But anyway, a book that long, a lot of authors, and I think Sanderson and other authors have this problem of pacing, especially like your Robert Jordans, where the pacing gets too long for its own good, and they just keep going on and on and on. It's like, okay, can you stop? But he did a fantastic job of keeping you interested. He'd give you like little bite-sized chunks of lore or character information throughout these chapters, specifically towards the end of the chapter, and it would keep you hooked. Just a sprinkling in like the beginning, and then a lot of fun information at the end, and it would with like a revelation on the last page of the chapter. And it really reminded me of like a James Patterson sort of deal with his short chapters, but there's just like just enough that you can just knock it out. And so it just flew by. In seconds, I was like done with the chapter, it felt like. I was like, wow, where'd the time go? I look at the watch, I'm like, where'd the time go? I was like, dadgum, this chapter was fast. And then all my nights gone, I realized I wasted 4 hours doing that instead of sleeping. And that's not a good sign. It was also one of the first books forever that kept me up till about 4 a.m. to read. So clearly doing something right there. Any other thoughts I have for this little mini review? The sense of awe. I don't know how to describe this very well, but there's a sense of awe and wonder I got from this book with the descriptions and the certain, races and the way things were described, that I was just like sitting there like, made me feel like a kid again. Does that make any sense? Like, made me feel like, well, I'm obviously pretty young. I said 20 at the start of the video, for Christ's sake. But made me feel like I was really young, discovering the world, discovering some aspect of what I found was fascinating, And that's how it felt for me. And only certain books have done this. Game of Thrones has done this. That's probably the only other fantasy book I've ever read that's done that. It's like that first feeling, if any of you play video games, where you walk out onto Halo's ring the first time and Combat Evolved. It's like that. You're just like, just given the sense of awe. Like, who built this? What is the purpose? Why is this here? The book gives you that. There are places they go in the book that feel sacred or somewhat holy, and you're like, wow, I wonder how this was built or crafted. And that's just a sense I can't explain very well. Along with what I said about the prose, everyone's going to have their subjective taste and what they like about prose, how things flow from paragraph to paragraph. But this work perfectly encompasses everything that I like from the fantasy genre. And that, to me, is one of the biggest, it's the single biggest phrase of praise I can give an author, especially a debut author. This was Brian Durfee's, I think, his debut novel. So I'm like sitting here like, wow, this book just blew me away. It exceeded all my expectations. I was not expecting a book that had a 3.91, I think, when I read it on Goodreads, to just be like, yeah, I like this more than The Wheel of Time. Yeah, I've read only 7 in that series, but still. Yeah, I like this more than most of Brandon Sanderson's work. In fact, I think I might like it more than my favorite book by him, which is crazy. And, you know, I have very high expectations for The Blackest Heart. I hope it impresses just as much as this book did. And if it does, Brian Durfee might actually become my favorite fantasy author. And I really hope the trilogy, which comes, the final book that comes out at the end of this year, I'm going to buy it, pre-ordering. It's the first pre-order I'm ever getting, I'm ever putting in. I'm going to buy that book. And I hope it ends very well. Because if it does, Brian Durfee will be my favorite fantasy author. And I hope there's many more stories he has in store for us. It doesn't even have to be fantasy, Brian. As long as it's science fiction, anything, historical fiction, I don't care. As long as he keeps up this just really fun writing that he has, and he stays consistent with writing and with his ideas, he definitely has a long-term fan here. So, yeah, I guess that's everything for my review. I hope Brian sees this, because I feel like I owe him for not uploading that YouTube review faster. But anyway, I hope y'all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope you enjoy my review. Yeah. Have a nice day, y'all.